Welcome to Sacred Magic. Violet is on a quest to bring sacredness back into our everyday experiences. Anyone can have an extraordinary life when they are able to tap into their sacred magic within. Violet and her guests will be sharing their divine passions, inspirations, and stories of connecting with their sacred magic. We are so happy you have joined us today. Let's get started with your host, the magical creator of Discover Your Spiritual Gifts, Vialet Rayne.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sacred Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Vialet B Rayne, and my guest today is Elizabeth Stauder. She is a somatic transformational coach helping sensitive spiritual seekers to come home to their bodies. Through her clinical training in somatic trauma, reprocessing, energy healing, and her personal experience reversing autoimmune illness, she specializes in healing the blockages that show up physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually for women seeking to live the life their soul desires. So welcome to the show, Elizabeth. How awesome to have you.
Thank you so much. It's a delight to be here.
What an amazing topic. But where I would love to start is, what guided you to do what you do today? Because I feel like, and I say this on every show, I think, and I say it a lot of people are awakening. A lot of people are having experiences that are jarring them or pushing them or shoving them or nudging them towards who they truly are. So share a little bit about your backstory. What guided you to do what you do today?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the version that I can't really name the beginning of is just being born a mystic, right? Being born a very sensitive spiritual person and highly sensitive in the world. Not really sure, how I fit in a lot of ways. And I appreciate what you just said about being nudged or bumped, because I've had a few different crises in my life. A lot of times through major illness, actually. In fact, one that happened a few years ago, which took me to the brink of not surviving. And so for me, I got into this work. You could say I've always been interested in how to actually operate in the 3D world. How do you how do you move around? How do you make money? How do you do relationships? And always like a very deeply soulful and spiritual being, I found somatic work first as a patient, as a client, and it suddenly made sense of everything I'd done. Energy healing, I'd done medicine wheel work, I'd done Reiki, I'd done different things like that. But it was the modality that also brought all of that home into my body and my nervous system in a way that I actually felt safe, and it all made sense. And I thought, oh my gosh, all these amazing experiences that I've had for my whole life through dreams and through mystical realms doesn't have to be something that I escape to and then come back and have my human life here. They can actually come together and become one thing and bring that magic home, bring that into my human experience. So that's kind of the short version of how it happened. And then, of course, the crises forced a lot of getting very skillful at that and learning how to do it for myself first and then for other people. Yeah.
Well, I love that story. And sensitivity is probably very popular and very common right now, because I believe everyone that's living in this time frame is, number one, very sensitive. Number two, to be intuitive, to be guided, to be guided along. When people are asking, I want your guidance, whether that's through prayer, meditation, whatever you're doing, where you're like, I want guided, I want to know what I'm supposed to be doing, that elevates your sensitivity to all the energy around us. And I think the reason where a lot of people are experiencing high levels of anxiety today is that sensitivity is we're being guided. In order to be guided, you kind of got to be sensitive to feeling, to knowing, to hearing, to seeing. And so I think everybody has a level of sensitivity today. They may ignore it. There's different levels on the spectrum. Some are very extreme sensitivity. Some are not as extreme, but I think being really sensitive is a blessing and not a curse,
I
because a
agree.
lot of people see it as, oh my gosh, I've been cursed. I'm shutting this down. I don't want to feel. I don't want to know. And it
Mm,
really is your navigation system. It is
mm,
your
mm.
ability to move through this lifetime with a little bit more grace, a little bit more ease, if you understand how to utilize it. So,
Yes. Yes.
Elizabeth, recently I got asked, and I mean very recently, what is somatic? So, share with us what is somatic and how is it different than energy healing or Reiki or some of the other common terms that people hear today?
Yeah, well, there's actually quite a big overlap with them. And I think that it's perfect following what you just shared about sensitivity. Somatic, from just a basic understanding, just means of the body. And so it's really including, it's not exclusive. I think it includes energy and the subtle body and all of these things, but it also includes the mechanisms of our physical body and nervous system, like the way that the cells fire, the way that our nervous system activates and relaxes, and the systems of like the circadian rhythm, for example, when our hormones wake us up and then when they make us sleepy, and these things that govern our physical vessel as well. And so for me, it has been the missing piece that has allowed me to go through these awakening moments, right, where your sensitivity increases. But how do you balance that out by being in touch and in tune with the rhythms of the body? Almost like in Tantra, you have the electric and the magnetic principle, or the yang and the yin. So I see the inclusion of the body and the body's rhythm as almost like the yin to the yang of that high activation energy. It's what allows it to be sustainable and have like a proper container in which to operate, so that your sensitivity can be something that you work with and that isn't taking you into overwhelm. If that, yeah, makes
I
sense.
love that. And what you have to understand is we're also sensitive to the energies of the planets, the moon cycles, the seasonal cycles. When you understand, years and years ago, we lived by those cycles. If we lived on this planet, we knew when harvest time was, we knew when planting season was. We watched the moon cycles. We paid attention to the rhythms of the planet, the frequencies that are happening on the planet. And today, for those out there, you're feeling this energy of the planet, not only the cycles of the planets moving, but the moon cycles, the seasonal cycles. And then there's lots of other energy that's happening all around us as physical beings. And for most people, they just keep moving through without recognizing winter has a rhythm to it. Spring
Mm,
has a rhythm. Summer has a rhythm. And when you can understand some of that and use
mm-hmm,
some of the techniques that you use and
mm-hmm,
really sit with it, you're like, wow, you can
mm-hmm,
move through the chaos that's happening out there with a little bit more grace and ease of understanding, oh, we're in spring or we're in winter. This is why my body, physically, emotionally, mentally, is reacting the way that it is, because this is a new season or a new cycle or a new moon or a full moon, or we have Aries lined up in the planets, or wherever you come from. All of that on some level impacts everyone out there. And so, our nervous system, I think that's the biggest thing right now, is we don't understand how to
mm-hmm.
always calm our nervous system within all of these energies. And I know somatic techniques and understanding helps us with that.
Absolutely. In fact, it helps us not only to calm our nervous system, but it also helps us to strengthen the resilience of our nervous system to meet the big energies as well. Because one of the things that happens when we're overwhelmed is, in nervous system speak, we go into freeze, which is like a kind of numbness, right? which I also think is very similar to when we talk about being asleep and waking up. I think of it almost like a frozen pond that's starting to thaw in the springtime, and all of those creatures that were under the water that were sort of sleeping, but they never completely died. They just kind of stopped a process. Now this warmth comes up. Now we're having these solar flares and everything's too. So there's a lot of like literal warmth coming onto the planet. All of a sudden they start moving again. And this could be something that happens within a lifetime. It could be something over the course of many lifetimes or within a family if you're doing intergenerational healing. But there's a kind of quickening of a pace and an awakening that happens, and the energy starts to move. And so with the somatic work, not only do we help the nervous system to be calm enough to calm enough so that it doesn't freak out about that, but it's almost like our digestive fire, our ability for our energy to digest all the things that have been, you could say, the trauma or the karma of the past that's been bound up and wound up in the body, either of a person or of the collective, to help it to undo and unwind and transmute from whatever the wound was into whatever the gift is. And when you do that, your life just becomes so much bigger. There's so much that's possible when you do that. And so the nervous system, I agree. I've heard the term almost like the nervous system is the bridge between like source, spirit, and the physical realm. It's like the tuning fork or the instrument. And I really feel that way about it. It's an amazing thing.
It really is. And I love how you talk about wind up, because what happens is we swallow our words, our emotions, we hide how we feel from the world, we shove it down into our physical body. Excuse me. I had a counselor once say, you have this pot and you keep shoving everything in it. Eventually, that pot is going to explode, boil over. All that has to come to the surface in some way. And that trigger may not, release in a way that you really want it to. So when you can unwind that energy that we've wound so tight and start to release it and let it go, it's an easier way for us to transmute that energy and transform it into wisdom and knowledge and integrate it. A lot of people out there are shutting down, closing down, ignoring, pushing away. And when you can really pause, I think the important part here is awareness. When you can slow down, because we're all our to-do list and we got to get it done and we're moving and we're not listening, we're not checking in. When you can calm down and pause for a moment and just be aware and really ask your body, your emotional body, your mental body, your physical body, your spiritual, and just take those breaths and say, what do I need today? What is my body telling me? What am I feeling that I need to pay attention to instead of ignoring it and running through it? And for a lot of people, I get it. We've had trauma. We don't want to face it. We want to keep it way back there. We're going to ignore that it ever happened because we're way up here now and that's way back there. You don't realize how that's affecting you in lots of different ways. And by working through your trauma doesn't mean it has to be so devastating that people think it is. There are so many techniques and ways to address trauma from the past so that you release it, so it doesn't impact you anymore, and you integrate the wisdom, because there's wisdom in everything. There is deep wisdom in everything that we've gone through. If you can integrate that, you can feel freer, lighter, more present in your experience, more joyful, more happy, all of those things. I guarantee you can have all of that. It's a choice.
I love that. And I have a definition of trauma healing, because people do feel like it's, oh no, is that going to make me go back into the pain and the catharsis? And it's like, actually all it is going to harvest a pearl that you lost. Somehow something beautiful was lost, and you're going back to find that thing and bring it back home. So actually your life is going to get a lot richer if you have the courage to do that healing work.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And what most people don't understand is when we're in trauma or pain or wounds, there's pieces of our soul that fragment off, right? We lose
Yeah.
pieces of our soul. And when we do this work, what you're really doing, that pearl, is bringing your soul fragments back in so that you
Mhm.
feel whole again and complete again and not missing something, not hiding something, but I believe we're here now in this time frame to heal ourselves, all past lives, through this lifetime, through everything, to heal our ancestors, to
Mm.
heal the generations, because healing is so available today. My parents did not have that availability. My grandparents probably didn't have that availability. We have the availability to heal not only ourselves, our ancestors, our generations, our communities, our planet, our world today. And that's really why we're here, is to clear all the wounds and pains from the past so that we can raise our vibration to a new level of joy and happiness.
Amen. That's the new earth. I'm all for it. All for it.
We're meant to create joy here, folks. You're not meant to suffer and pain. Does that mean when you step onto your spiritual journey that you don't have those experiences anymore? No, but it means you move through them differently. You see
Yeah.
them differently. You understand them differently. You grow through them differently. So having somebody to work with is really, really important. And so being able to do that healing is really great. So you talk about restoring the sacred where it was lost. I love the word sacred.
Yeah.
Um, and so share with us maybe a story or something on how people move forward after doing some of this healing work. What changes or benefits have you seen that people have
Mhm.
experienced?
Yeah, it really happens in all areas of life because, like you said, when the soul comes home to the body, and I see it that way too, it's like whatever was blocking us from moving forward, whether it's in our work, in our relationships, in our physical health, like it starts to dissolve and we start to move. I see it almost like we are like a plant that's growing towards the sun. And so it's just been stunted, right? So when we bring home that soul essence, it begins to move again towards the sun. And so that can look like, I mean, for me, I physically reversed an autoimmune illness. That was a major undertaking. And I've seen other people have health symptoms go away that were there before. I've seen people go from being unhappy in relationships to finding happiness, or waking up to discover that they were saying yes to something that was not in their highest frequency, and then having the courage to set boundaries and step away from something that they never thought they would have the courage to step away from, then unlocking new opportunities on the other side. People heal their birth trauma. People reconnect with ancestors on the other side. You know, it can be quite a deeply emotional process in a positive way, where the release of the trauma happens almost as an afterthought to the deep joy and awe that someone is feeling as that soul part reconnects with them. So there's a lot of ways that can work, but the thing that people will always say is that they feel like they're more and more coming home to themselves, like being themselves gets easier and less hard. And the struggles, like you said, it's not that they go away, but they change. There's a lot more resilience, and yeah, there's just much more of a felt sense of pleasure in healing, right? So healing becomes less of this thing, I gotta go in there and do it so I can get through it. But healing just becomes like artistry, like painting a painting, like life becomes this opportunity for joy and pleasure and beauty.
I love that. I love that. And, you know, we start to grow and we change, and who we are changes. So I see transformation a lot through a lot of different types of work. There's, you know, I always say there's 100 ways to get to what you're trying to do. You know, think about your computer. There's 100 ways to save a document. There's 100 ways to copy and paste. There's, you know, we can, and every system is a little different, but there's not just one way. Some people are really drawn to one thing or another, and they feel they feel that major transformation come through. Sometimes it's in layers, like we're guided down a path of layers. And I'm sure you felt this too. I'm first guided to Reiki. I don't know what Reiki is. I'm going to go try Reiki, and I do Reiki, and that's a level. And then I'm drawn to energy healing with crystals and different other things. And I'm like, okay, that's another layer. And then we're drawn to somatic or EFT, or I mean, there's a zillion ways to do this, and how we resonate with different things is different for everyone because we're all so different. You know, I have lots of practitioners that say, "Oh, mine's the only way." There's lots of ways to get to where you're at. It's finding somebody that you feel comfortable with, that you resonate with, that you can lean in with, that you can be vulnerable with, and begin to work with them and see where that goes. That's really, really important. So, finding the right person. Who do you resonate with? What sounds more aligned with you? What do you need? What is their specialty? And then you can find it. And it sounds like you work with a lot of people that have experienced trauma, different types of trauma. So share with us a little bit, Elizabeth, of some of the things you offer, how people can connect with you, and what are the differences in your offerings so that they understand that.
I appreciate what you just said about the diversity. It's a really important part of my work to support the natural intelligence of the person instead of telling them what to do. So it's very different than other coaching in that way. Because what we do in the work is tap into the field of the nervous system. It's almost like co-channeling, right? The highest direction for the person and helping the body to assimilate that at the right pace and dose. And so what ends up then happening is that people become more and more clear what their next step is. And so I think of it more of like being like a doula to a birth process rather than someone coming with a checklist saying, do this, this, and that exercise. It's a really, really beautiful modality. So I have been offering somatic transformation coaching for about 8 years. And just a year ago, I up-leveled that into a group community experience, which has been so magical and amazing. And it's the next level because people really can witness each other and grow faster, almost like they're in a shared garden bed where they're witnessing other women and their processes, and it just accelerates their growth and learning. So that came along with a curriculum, which I call the metamorphosis curriculum. And people get to go through the stages of caterpillar, chrysalis, butterfly, and eventually the flock that that bursts the eggs for the next cycle and starts again into that regenerative wheel. And so, yeah, the best place for people to come if they're interested in learning about that is called Body and Soul Village Community. It's on my website, which I believe will be posted in the show notes. And I'm really just, listening. There's a lot of things I have deep expertise in this work, but each year there's new pieces that are coming through. And so I've actually really just decided, instead of having several offerings, to gather everything in the Body and Soul Sanctuary, where people really get to be shepherded in a way that's much deeper than just doing the one-to-one individual session work. It's like being part of a ritual container, like a village space, because I believe that's one of the missing pieces, is not just the modalities to support the nervous system, but the community, right? And part of the trauma that I've seen, or the soul loss, is the way that we've become such a hyper-independent society. And so to create a space in which we can have that interdependence where we're growing together in an evolutionary container. I see that as so important. So I've really been putting all of my energy into building that lately. So that's really the place to come and check the work out, if you're interested in getting support. To the one-to-one work is almost like psychic surgery. So that's where I bring in my clinical training, and I can really work with your body and nervous system to literally perform like what's the next piece that your psyche needs to undo that karmic knot and get to the next level. And those are quite profound. But I've found that even in just holding a coherence field, and a lot of I'm sure other people have found this who've tapped into the coherence field, a lot of that can happen in ways that I don't even have to necessarily track each individual when we're doing that together in a group. And so that's something that's really powerful that happens within the sanctuary. And then we get to get coached after the meditation on how to apply that to everyday life. How do I apply that to my relationship with my spouse or my kids? How do I apply that to my relationship with money, or how my job is going and what to have the conversation with my boss, those kinds of things. So that's where it really brings the spiritual and energy work deep into physical 3D life coaching.
I love that. The practical tools that we all need. But I also think we're very social creatures, and COVID really did separate us from that socialization. And I feel we're just now coming back out and connecting again out in the world. And we need community, we need connection, we need that more than we know, because so many people are working from home, so many people are isolated in lots of different ways. We really need that social interaction to know that we're not alone, that we're not different, that this is only happening to us, to see that it's out there. And so I love that you're creating that container for people to come together.
Yes, I think the new earth is just going to keep growing with all kinds of modern day mystery schools.
I think so too. I think it's definitely heading in that direction. So yeah. Elizabeth, thank you so much for taking the time today to share your sacred magic with us. I really do appreciate it. And sharing your knowledge and wisdom, I really love that as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And those that are listening, thank you for taking the time to listen and hang out with us today. Whether you're watching the video or listening to the podcast, make sure you like, comment, and follow us on your favorite channels. I hope you have a great day, and thank you so much for checking this out.
Thank you for joining us. To find out more about Vialet, head over to discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. You can also send a personal message to Vialet through email, violet@discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. If you love the show, subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Until next time, remember, we are meant to have abundant and joyful lives. We hope to see you soon at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.